welcome to Free2talk TV. It's weird because Owen hasn't been on Free2talk TV for a while, but is still in the jingle. We are glad to have you back, Owen. So we are joined by our normal special guest crew and youth and workers, but also we've got a special guest just below me on my screen, Counsellor James Hill. Thank you for coming on, James, which, as we've already said, is the best name in the world. Don't you agree?
Absolutely, yes.
Certainly is. Yeah, so Councillor James has joined us so we can talk about Pride Month, diversity, and all those kind of things. But before we go into the nitty-gritty, if you are watching, please give us a like, please give us a comment. We will be to take your questions live and answer them as we go. But we need to check on how everyone's doing. Owen, how have you been? How's your week been so far?
My week so far has been a little bit chaotic since this is the second week in my production stuff. Last week, I was doing one show, completed that successfully. Now this is a different show, the second week. So I am bombarded with scripts.
For those that don't know, Owen is an actor at college. And you're very good at going, and all that kind of stuff. Rioni, how have you been?
I've been fine. Just been enjoying the sun.
Yeah,
chilling.
With the little girl as well. Has she been enjoying the sun? Yeah. Excellent. That's what we quite like to hear. Charlotte, how have you been?
Yeah, I'm good. I've just finished a busy weekend at work, but I'm off next weekend. So
woohoo!
Yay!
Are you getting up to some partying? Are you, Charlotte?
Definitely.
Oh, so we're allowed to say that kind of stuff. Is fine, but it's partying in a responsible way.
Oh, yeah.
Emma, hello, Emma. We're all gonna say hello to Emma. Ayo, how have you been? With your happy face.
Oh, yeah. I'm just smiling for the camera. Yeah, I've been good. I think the weather is too good today to be at work. I shouldn't be working today. I should be in the sun, isn't it? But yeah, I've been good. Thank you.
Right, that's it. We're all going on strike. See you later. Goodbye. James, how's your week been? Thanks very much again for coming on.
Yeah, no, good, thank you. Yes, busy as always. Obviously, lots going on with the new council and stuff. But yeah, currently enjoying the sunshine as well where I can. So yeah, all good. Thank you.
Excellent. And Richard, now that you've turned your internet off and on again,
it's been all right. It's too hot outside, so I've
too
been in all day. And
too hot.
the final week of college. So
yay! Almost finished. I love it. Right, so introductions over. If anyone else wants to chime up on the stream, on the chat, I can show it live, please do. But yeah, so we are currently, it's Pride Month. We've had the local elections for West Northamptonshire and North Northamptonshire councils, which is why we've got James on. But I will be joined by another councillor next week and hopefully through this month to answer questions from young people and adults about what's going on. So I do want to start because Owen and Richard and all the young'uns, because not me, because I'm old and decrepit, don't know enough about politics, James. So I would like to just get it out of the way. Why is politics important?
Oh, it's massively important. Obviously, it's your democratic way to kind of like shape what's going on in both locally and nationally in your country. And I think we know that the vote is such an important thing, and that lots of people have fought and even died for the vote. So it's vitally important that we engage as much as possible in terms of taking that up. And that's something I'm very passionate about, and something that I think we need to try and push more if we can.
Yeah. I totally agree. I mean, because the difficulty with like a lot of our young people is they like Richard. I mean, I love Richard, like how Richard does this, because he goes, "I just don't know. Can you explain it to me?" I love it because he's like a sponge, and I really enjoy it. But I find that lots of young people, because they're not taught it in any way, shape, or form, they've just got no idea about politics. I mean, do you think we need to change that?
I think so, yeah. I mean, especially sort of when you look at like local politics as well. I think we're quite aware about national politics. It's obviously in the national news quite a bit, and I think schools do try to touch on that. But in terms of local politics, they don't really cover it. And actually, when you look at your day-to-day life, your council has a much bigger impact on you than your MP may do. So I think it is something that we do need to try and address, and because we know turnout in local elections is dreadfully poor. I think it was only sort of around 33% this time round. I mean, arguably you could say COVID had an impact on that, but I think it's something that we do need to do, especially among young people who, like you say, numbers are even lower. So yeah, it is important. I think we need to. It'd be good if schools and maybe the education as a whole looked at pushing that forward. Definitely.
Cool. So over to you, young people. Not the questions I gave you earlier, but whilst we've got a counsellor here, is there anything you would like to jump in with that you'd like to ask? Something's been burning question. You don't have to. It's fine. I've kind of
time. Would you like me to speak about the changes that have happened in terms of the local council structure?
Yes, actually, that'd be good.
I think so. It's really the biggest significant change we've had in local government since 1974 in Northampton. So it is a big change. So basically, we had 8 councils in the county beforehand. So we had NTC, who looked after things like our schools, roads, and children's services. And then you had your local borough councils like Northampton, Daventry, South Northants, which basically did things like your bins, housing, and sort of other areas. Basically, what's happened is those councils have all been abolished, so we don't longer have those, and we just have 2 big unitary councils. They're called. We have a North Northamptonshire one, which is Kettering, Corby, Wellingborough, and East Northants, and then we have a West Northamptonshire one, which is Northampton, Daventry, and South Northants. And basically, these 2 councils now look after all of the services rather than having 2 separate ones which do 2 separate things. So in theory, it should be more streamlined and provide a better service to residents, because rather than having to go to one council to find out one thing, you can just go to one person now, or one council, one contact. So that's the idea. And in theory as well, it should save money in the future too, because obviously you don't have to have as many employees or chief execs. We no longer need 8 chief execs, for example. We have just 2 now. So it's areas like that where money should be saved and it should make things a lot better.
Yeah, cool.
In theory. But it's going to take time, obviously.
So Lawrence, one of our long-time watchers, come on, Ola. Oh, hello to Ollie, Lawrence there. So Richard, you did have a question though. It's like, why is it so complicated?
The times I actually pay attention to politics and that, what? It's like my brain doesn't think of this is happening. It's like what is going on? Why is it so confusing last time? It's probably because I don't pay attention to politics. Yeah, I'll admit it. I don't pay any attention to it. But half the time when I do, I'm like, what is going on?
Over to you, James.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, this is talking about the engagement, isn't it? The way that we're engaging with young people, and I mean, each party did produce a manifesto for this council election. So I bet you probably didn't even know that those existed. And essentially, in the manifesto, it basically outlined what each party considers to be its aims and goals, and priorities for the next 4 years, because obviously in 4 years' time there'll be another election. So that would always be a good place to start. We try and make it as accessible as possible, so it's not too long-winded and long. So I think our one was around 10 pages, but obviously every party usually creates one, and that's a good place to start, I think. And then you then look at what person who's standing in your area. So obviously everyone lives in Northampton, and Northampton's split up into different what they call wards. So essentially each ward has 3 councillors who are elected this time round. The 3 kind of ones who receive the most votes, and then they become your elected representative essentially, and they're the person you go to if you have an issue whether you can't resolve through the council, or you want to contact them about something that you feel important about. That's what happens.
Right.
I mean, Richard, to be honest, it's always going to be complicated because it's politics. But it's the more you try and understand it, the more it will come together. So I've just got a question for you, James, from the chat. So, what drove you to stand as a counsellor?
That's a good question. I mean, I've got me feedback then. I've always so I lived in Northampton since 1 year old. I have children. I think. I left my town, but I felt that there were areas that I thought I could be a contribute and help, and kind of I don't know, offer something that perhaps we weren't necessarily getting on the council. So the average age of a councillor is actually kind of very, very. I'm one of the younger councillors. Thing, and I felt that my voice could offer something a bit different in terms of what the usual councillors could be. And actually, you know, I found the last 6 years, when I first got elected in 2015, kind of probably one of the most exhilarating experiences of my life. You get involved in so many things that you wouldn't even think part of the day-to-day life of being a councillor. It's been such a great experience. So yeah, that's why. But I carried on really.
Excellent. Right, so Ao, you've got a question for the councillor, haven't you? First, I think.
Yeah, a couple of questions to be honest. James, I think in the past 2 weeks, we've been talking about discrimination. Obviously, I think 2 weeks ago was George Floyd's 1st year anniversary of him being murdered in America. So it triggered a few conversations on the team. And while we talked about everything that happened, we brought it back home to the UK. And I think today, I want us to bring it locally to Northampton. Is there any data at the moment that reflects discrimination in terms of racial discrimination in Northampton? Is this something that's happening in Northampton or not? And if it is there any data that reflects that, please?
Okay, yeah. So I mean, like you say, the Black Lives Matter movement has been something which is over lockdown has been really sort of in the media and been massive. And we had as you know, we've had a few protests, marches in Northampton, which I did attend the first one. And one thing I want to say is that, you know, Northampton really did ourselves proud in that event because it was really well attended, but it was really peaceful and everyone was in great spirits. So just to kind of like pay homage really to the town there, that we've always sort of been the leaders, if you like, in sort of showing how you should properly make these matters known. But in terms of discrimination, I chair the Diverse Community Forum, which is at the Borough Council, and one of the things that we do get is every time we do the meeting is we get the stop and search statistics, which are interesting because obviously we know that ethnic minorities are disproportionately affected by stop and search. And one of the things that the police officers do try and engage with is how we can tackle why that is, if that makes sense. And it's a difficult subject because some people are obviously very much in favour of stop and search because they feel that, you know, it's a way of preventing crime. But at the same time, if you're racially profiling people, that in itself is an issue as well. And I think Northamptonshire Police have got better at that, and they've now got they've got an officer who's dedicated to looking at these sort of issues, and they do engage with things like the council and other agencies, but they acknowledge there's still a long way to go. I don't think Northamptonshire is the best, but I don't think we're anywhere near the worst. I think things are improving. There's always room for improvement. So, yeah.
Okay.
And I'm just going to interrupt, sorry, because we've got a hi from Anna King. Hello, Anna. And just Lawrence, you put in some really complicated questions in the chat, so I'm just going to focus on the diversity stuff at the moment, if that's okay, and then we'll come back to you if we've got time. Ao, you finished with that? Should we get to go to Owen and his little question?
Okay, I think my last question on that is so if, for example, any of the guys here, any one of us becomes a victim of discrimination, where can we go? Who can we talk to?
Yeah, so there is a special mechanism in place regarding hate crime. So it would be the police of your first port of call, and they have, like I said, they do record hate crime figures. It's something that they're very big on, because there's something called a hate crime, but there's also a hate crime incident as well, where not necessarily a crime has occurred, but something racially has happened to a victim, and they do record these figures, and they are analysed and looked at as well. And again, this is something that the Diverse Community Forum do look at their meetings too. So that's what you'd need to do. You need to go to the to report it to the police in the first, which should be 111 usually, depending on the nature of the incident, of course.
Okay.
All right.
I mean, I just want to jump in with that reporting mechanism because in our particular youth work, because we work in a lot of the disadvantaged areas. I mean, there's a lot of distrust anyway from those communities.
Yeah.
especially with the police. Like, there's, I mean, to be honest, I was speaking to a young person just yesterday. I was like, well, there's no point reporting it to police because nothing will happen, nothing will change. Have you got any way of challenging that? Is there anything you can advise or something you want to put in place?
It's interesting you say about the diversity of police in general, police officers. The police are actually just launching a new scheme to look at that and trying to, to encourage LGBTQ plus people to join the force, and also ethnic minorities as well. So they've received some funding from the government to actually do this, which is being launched very soon. It may even be launched now. I think if I can find it, I'll post the website link to you guys.
Well, I've just had Anna King's just done it for you.
Yeah, there we go. So that's great, thank you, Anna. so yes, yeah, that's good. I can't remember what I was saying now. So yeah, in terms of the mechanism for reporting, Anna's just put in that in place. But in terms of how the police are trying to, get more diversity, that is in hand. What I would say about the reporting thing is that it is really important to report things, because even if you don't necessarily get a response from that report, what it does help is it helps the police see where certain areas and things are happening. They can see patterns, and that's when it enables them to put resources into those areas. So I get it. It can be frustrating when you report something, you think nothing's happened, but actually it helps build a bigger picture in terms of the whole picture in terms of what's going on in the county. So it is important to do. I really would always say report.
Okay, cool. I just want to go around to the young people though, and ask. I mean, did you know about any of this? Do you think it's good?
I knew.
Yeah.
Sorry, James, go.
No, I was just going to say, off you go, Owen.
Oh, okay. I knew about hate crime being recorded and assessed, because hate crime can happen even when someone's not even realizing it. Some type of just normal chit chat between people can be classified as hate crime by their type of language or their topic in question. Obviously, I didn't exactly know about the other system to that the police do use. I didn't know about that, but I'm kind of glad that I do know now, because it opens up a little bit more of an understanding that then they are doing something about it. They are keeping an eye on it, and saying in roughed up areas or in very risky areas, such as where you particularly operate around, James Shepherd, where it's not challenged as much.
Yeah.
But it is actually being implemented. It is being implemented. So yeah, I say report.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, just to go round for Rioni, Charlotte, and Richard as well. So do you guys think there's any other way that the police or local counsellors can actually encourage young people to come forward or report stuff? Do you think there's extra measures that can be put in place?
Maybe to implement it in schools.
Yeah,
especially secondary schools, when they're able to understand what's going on in society. I think that would help.
That's a good shout. Charlotte?
Yeah, I would agree. I think more education generally, especially in secondary schools, just more awareness and contacts and things. Yeah, I agree with you, Amy.
All right, Richard, I'm going to pick on you because you're the youngest, basically out of the group. But if I told you we could teach you in school about diversity, politics, and building trust with the police instead of an extra maths lesson, what would you go for?
I actually like maths.
Oh! chose the wrong guy.
If you said English,
right? Okay. Well, I mean, because you're at college, right? But you're the one that's left school the soonest. Do you think there's space in the curriculum to learn about these things?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it could be PSHE lessons and things like that.
Secondary schools.
I think the police do come into schools, don't they? But I think it's it would be good to have more. I agree.
Yeah. Owen, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just want to quickly jump in. I would say, just on top of that question about should it be implemented in schools, like particularly in secondary school, probably year 9, year 10, year 11, because they're thinking about their GCSEs, but also their timetables are shortened with choosing their specific subjects that they want to. They can work around a little bit more freedom of time for more understanding about politics and of policing as well.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll tell you what, Owen, just for you, when I'm in Malcolm Arnold on Thursday, I'll put it to the young people and they'll probably throw me out. GCSEs! Off they go. Right. What was the next question, Ao? Has Owen got the next question you have, I think, maybe?
No, I don't have any question.
No?
No.
No? Nobody else got any other questions for James Hill at this moment?
I don't think so.
No? Excellent.
Not right now.
Not right now. Okay. You see, James, you're very good at this politician.
Obviously, answer all the questions.
You kind of explained all the first bit. Right. So now we're in Pride Month, and I've got one other thing I want to talk to everyone about. But Pride Month, everyone's got the flags out. We've got a whole month to celebrate the LGBTQI community. I should have got Parker, who's our LGBTQI worker, on, but I think she was doing something else. How important do you think, or the actions of the council can be to support in that, James? What do you reckon?
Yeah, so we've actually got a meeting next Monday to look at what we're going to be doing this year. Obviously, COVID and everything that's gone on has restricted our usual plans. I think Northampton has a proud history when it comes to LGBTQ events and Pride Month in general. We had a lot of events pre-COVID that were really always well attended. So it's a real shame that this is something that we can't do as normal. But I think the council play a massive role in facilitating that. And one of the forums that does exist, we do have an LGBTQ forum, which is alongside the diverse community forum as well. So they do really important work. And whether it's funding or just support in terms of helping to organise events, it's really important that the council's plugged into that, because at the end of the day, the council's here to serve the people and all of our residents, including our LGBTQ community as well. So yeah, absolutely vital that they're involved. And I think I know Northampton Borough Council had a really rich history in terms of that, and I'm sure that West Northants will continue that history. I know obviously Anna King is watching, and she's been heavily involved in that sort of stuff as well. So yeah, I'm like I say, next Monday we'll know more about what's happening, and I'm sure you guys will hopefully be involved as well.
Well, I might have to re-invite you on then when you've got all the answers for that one. Is anyone else want to jump in with what they think about Pride, what Pride means to them, what they think we can do, and not just James but us just here now? What do you reckon? God, everyone's just boiled their brains through the heat, haven't they? So, yeah. I mean, right. So, Richard and Owen, you've attended our youth groups. Do you think in youth groups we should talk about it more, or do you think we just talk about it enough? I mean, because I should say, like Owen, you attended the Lodge Farm youth group, didn't you?
Yeah.
And we had, before COVID, we had a few young people with, wanted to change their gender identity, and we put it to the young people about how we should deal with it. And in all honesty, for all the adults here, the young people just didn't give a damn. They just kind of got on with it. They just if they want to use that gendered toilet, then whatever. That's what they feel comfortable with. So do you think we address it enough, Owen, or do you think there's more we can do?
You do address it quite well. When I was going to youth club, you do address it quite well, and you gave them that freedom. You did give them the freedom to obviously use the gender toilets that they prefer to use. Mm-hmm. And just in general, you do just have a chat with people just sitting around talking about it, just overhearing a few conversations. I do hear that you mention it a lot, and giving them the freedom of choice. So you do quite a lot as it is. You do say, I don't think you need to keep saying to yourself that you need to do more, because you do an incredible amount as it is, because it just helps. It really does.
I mean, I love your opinion there, Owen. It's great. It's made my head go lovely and big. But I mean, the other thing is, do you think there's ever a point where we've done enough? This is kind of an open question to everyone. Then I've got a question from the chat for you, James. What do you reckon?
I don't.
Yeah.
One, isn't it? I mean, I think you can tell that it's become less of an issue because it's just become more normalised, isn't it? So obviously, I think, for example, homosexuality, sort of 20 years ago, suddenly became a lot more normalised, and then we had the introduction of gay marriage, which was a massive step. And I think some of the sort of transgender-related issues, which are now becoming to the forefront, will hopefully get to that point as well at some point. So I think there's a lot of work that still needs to be done there, not just because people are not necessarily against it, but because I think there's education around it as well, isn't there? Because it is quite a complex subject, isn't it? In terms of gender assignment and how people want to be taught to, and things like pronouns and stuff like that are relatively new concepts within society that I think we're just sort of starting to get a grip on. And I think we just need to make sure that we bring people along on the journey with us, not necessarily because they're going to be ignorant, but because actually they just don't know, do they? And they may not know someone who's transgender or transitioned. And I think that's why it's so important we keep doing the work. And I think you kind of know instinctually, don't you, when you've reached that point? I think we're a long way off it yet, but I hope there comes a time when you wouldn't need necessarily a Pride Month, because it's so ingrained in our society that people don't even think about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I think we're a long way off that. But yeah, hopefully one day.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to jump in?
Yeah, I was just going to add, from the perspective of a youth worker, obviously there are pillars of youth work, and part of those pillars is education, equality, and participation. I think just reflecting about it, for example, when we're talking about politics, and we realize that not a lot of young people know a lot about politics. And I'm just thinking, if it's possible if the council can put aside maybe a few days or a week every year to make it like an awareness week in schools, especially secondary schools, where these things can just be talked about, politics, equality, inclusion, diversity, and stuff like that. I think it might be very helpful. And I think it's going to build a lot of bond and friendship between young people and the community, because many times as a youth worker, speaking to young people, there's just a lot young people don't know, and at the end of the day, it's not their fault. It's just because not a lot of education is going into it. So I think if there's a way that the council can put in place an inclusion of secondary schools in terms of education and awareness of just things, local things, not even national things, local things that affects them, I think that may be helpful. Just my thoughts, really. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of that work has been done or is being done. I mean, unfortunately, I say if Anna was here, I think she'd be able to tell you more, because obviously that's her main area of focus. But you're absolutely right. I agree that that's an area where the partnership work needs to happen between councils, between schools, between the police, between all our organisations that we have, actually, because they all can reach different parts of our society, can't they? It's just bringing everyone along on the journey with you and getting everyone plugged into things. I think it's important.
Right, I've got to put this out because otherwise Jodie will go mad. Jodie's been watching. She's one of our directors, and she said youth workers should be teaching this in schools. Jodie's just trying to give me more work to do, really. Thanks, Jodie. Jodie's actually got a question. I'm worried that there are still issues with bullying in schools and communities around LGBTQ+. What do the council think should happen?
Yeah, again, I think it just comes down to education, doesn't it? And making sure people are aware of different sorts of gender assignments and all that sort of thing that's going on, because most of the time it just comes down to ignorance, in my experience, and a lack of experience and lack of education around it. And I think that's why we need to make sure that we have this multi-agency approach to these sort of this sort of education and this issue. I think it's education. Education is the key. You can't force the horse to drink the water, but you can you can help them assign it and get there. So I think that's what I believe. I think we need to just keep pushing it and making sure that we carry on the work which I know Anna King has been pushing for years now.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just going to add to that, please, James. You've been here today, and please not Monday. Tomorrow is Wednesday. When you get back to the council, speak for youth workers. Speak for youth work. We're not funded enough.
Yes, yeah.
Please, we're not funded enough.
Of course, and it's always one of those difficult things. Obviously, councils have a limited budget, so our budget is finite. And unlike the NHS or other organisations, councils legally cannot spend what they don't have. So we have to legally set a budget which balances every year. So we can't spend it we don't have, basically. But the good thing is that I think obviously around, especially post-COVID and within COVID, there's been a lot more funding given to the councils to support things around sort of mental health and that sort of thing as well. And I'm hopeful that these are things which will continue. And I know, again, sorry, I keep referring to Anna because obviously it's her area. She's the assistant cabinet member for communities. So this is more her domain. But I know that she's really passionate about it, and it's work that she's really keen to see going. But as you know, unfortunately, we live in a real world where funding is finite, and we don't have an unlimited amount of money. But I agree that youth workers and the work you guys do is so important because it feeds into so many different areas in terms of how children grow up and what shapes their mind. And I think especially as we come out of lockdown now, post COVID, people are really going to need that support and that direction that comes not just from youth workers, but in general in terms of all the systems in place. So absolutely, AR. If I could wave a magic wand and give you unlimited funding, I would. But as you know, we've worked together for a long time, and we live in a world of finites, don't we? But it's about getting the balance right. And that's what the councils try and do, I think, for the most part.
Cool. I've just got another little comment from Jodie because I was just going to add to it. So I'm not sure practitioners and teachers know how to address issues of bullying and when it should be recognised as a hate crime. I mean, I want to put that kind of question out there as well. Because I'm not sure, even me as a youth worker, I would be able to recognise what would be technically a hate crime when it comes down to LGBTQI plus and stuff. Because I've got to be honest, I mean, with LGBTQ, I've just kind of been of the opinion that, you want to be, you now want to be referred to as a she, and I've gone okay, but because I've kind of gone okay, and I've just gone along with it. I haven't fully understood what that means. So
implications sometimes.
Yeah, the implications. So what do you think we can do about that kind of education with adults as well? And Owen got a question. Owen wants to jump in.
I've not got a question. I've got something about how to identify a bit more of hate crime, because I did a little bit of research of this in my spare time quite a while ago, and I was just looking on YouTube, and I found on the Home Office YouTube account, hate crime nationwide campaign. It's about a minute long, and it literally just demonstrates all types of different types of hate crime that are out there.
Okay, let me just find
I might have picked up the wrong one, but it's that one. It looks the same.
All right, I've just found it. Let me put it in. Right, and there's the YouTube should be linked into the chat. Yeah, so it should all be there. Sorry, I'm just getting a bit of feedback from someone. I don't know who it is. Yeah, so it should all appear on the chat. Right. Oh, the feedback is still there. There's something wrong with my end, but never mind. Right. Answer. Have you got any other answers for that, James, while we go?
No, I think what Owen raised there is a good point. So I'm getting quite bad feedback.
Yeah.
Everyone all good?
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, 1 second. Let me work this out. Right, how's that? Oh, it's AO. It's AO.
He's the culprit.
AO, sorry, the feedback was coming from you. So if you mute yourself, he's just gone. AO, I didn't mean it to be that bad. You just had to mute yourself, mate. Jeez.
You took it personally.
He did take it personally. Right, so James, I mean, I don't want you to feel on the spot here, but I think we're going to grill all the counsellors that come on this month.
Absolutely, yeah, please. So in terms of like, should youth workers be teaching in schools, and how should schools go about this? I mean, my son's, he's 12 years old, and he's been recently doing some work around this. And actually, I was quite impressed by some of the things they were covering around, transgender and LGBTQ issues that he was telling him about. Certainly things that weren't spoke about when I was at school. So I think it is starting to happen, but I think it needs, as we discussed earlier, perhaps there does need to be more emphasis on it, and actually, kind of like, putting more work and time into it. Again, schools are limited. They have a curriculum they have to follow. But at the same time, I think these are really important issues that, can really make a big impact in people's lives, can't they? So it's important to do it.
Cool. Right. Well, we've covered so much. I feel like we've just move over question time. We're moving in. I mean, James, for you, I mean, thanks for everything that you've answered with regards to diversity and pride. But I just want to again put it to the floor and see if there's anything else anyone wants to ask before I go on to the next subjects that I want to talk about.
I do have one little question, which I've just thought of it. Considering about what's been put in place, what interventions have you put in place or will be putting in place against racial discrimination?
Is that in terms of within the council, or just generally in Northamptonshire as a?
Generally in Northamptonshire County Council.
I mean, so obviously, as a council, we try to lead on best practice on this. So we have our forums, which do a lot of great work in terms of reaching out to different communities and bringing different organisations together to discuss it. I think in terms of the actual society, I know the police, as I've said, are doing a lot of work around this now. Maybe some people would argue it will never be enough, but I think there is genuine thirst and genuine determination to try and get things better. I mean, in terms of, I've lived in Northampton since I was 1 year old. I think I can see a progression from when I was younger to now. But again, it's about making sure that we don't kind of get complacent and that we continue the work that's being done. So I think, again, it's an ongoing process. It's an ongoing thing. And as more issues come to the forefront, that's what, councils need to be hot on the tail of that and make sure they're addressing them. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Cool.
That was just the one question I just popped to my head.
Excellent. Nice one, Owen. Right. So I've got a couple other little subjects I want to cover, which are kind of more open forum. Everyone can join in. And the first of these is the Euros are about to start. Any football fans here? No, just the counsellor. I mean, I like watching football. I like watching football as well. I'll join you there.
I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of it, but I may pay attention to a couple games.
Yeah. I enjoy watching the England games anyway. So. Now, obviously in the news, with the England players taking the knee in solidarity for Black Lives Matter, so the fans in the crowd booed the England team, which I want to ask what everyone's opinions of that was, if you heard it or saw it. What do you reckon, Owen?
Well, this is the first time I've heard it because I don't really keep up to date with football type of stuff. I'm more of a rugby guy, but
proper sport.
Yeah. Sorry, I just had to say Welsh rugby, yes. But I'm actually genuinely quite surprised and shocked that they booed for that, because the English team are just showing respect for exactly for Black Lives Matter. They're just showing their commitment and respect for it. So to be booed for it, it's really disrespectful.
Yeah.
It's really disrespectful.
It reflects badly on the people in the crowds, doesn't it? It just shows that lack of education and everything. Yeah.
Rioni?
Yeah, I was unaware of this as well, but that's so shocking.
Yeah.
Like, I'm actually surprised.
Me too.
Anyone else jumping in?
Can I just quickly raise? Was it actually just actual proper spectators, or was it just pre-recorded or something?
Spectators. It was actually people in the crowd actually booing the taking the knee that all the England team took. So
yeah, I mean, I think in terms of football, we know that football has unfortunately a bit of a bad past in terms of racism. And we know when we've in the 80s when you'd get banana skins thrown onto the pitch of black players and stuff. Yep. It was really, really awful. And then you listen to stories from like the likes of Ian Wright, who basically kind of like went through his entire football career being racially discriminated against in silence for the most part. And then we had the Kick It Out campaign, which was done by the FA, which I think was really well received actually, and did do a lot of great work. It's interesting to see that for me, who's seen both, BLM movement and Kick It Out, it's interesting to see how the two have been quite differently received. And I'm not exactly sure why that is. I think some people feel that Black Lives Matter do have other connotations to them in terms of what they stand for as well, which may be part of the reason why. But I think, the problem now is you have social media, and a lot of people live in echo chambers, I think. So, we know that, for example, Facebook, the more things you like, the more it will show you of what you like, if that makes sense. So if you like a lot of certain subjects, it will show you certain subjects, and you'll see less and less. And I think that can build a microcosm for people. And if you have a lot of anti-BLM stuff being showed in your feed every day, then it can create this idea that actually it's something which is really, really bad. And so I think that's part of the problem, and actually why perhaps the Kick It Out campaign, which was sort of pre-social media, was really well received and universally acclaimed. Whereas there's a big divide. There's a big divide, I think, in terms of what people think that Black Lives Matter stand for, which is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, because I know I've seen arguments on social media because I try and stay out of the echo chamber. About people saying that the fans booing is their way of protesting wokeism, as it were.
Yes. Yeah.
But I still feel like that. Well, they're showing solidarity for fighting against racism, and also the evidence is that when Wales played Albania and all the Welsh players took the knee, nobody booed. So, and I'm just like, well, maybe there is still an issue here, but people just don't want to see it. I mean, do you think that could be a possibility?
Yeah, I think it's certainly been an eye opener. I mean, it would be interesting if you spoke to these people booing one-on-one what they say their reasons were, because I think you'd find that maybe some don't even realise what they're doing, and that they're literally just sort of caught in the moment, and it's like, okay, we're gonna boo. I don't believe that it is about necessarily people all booing are racist, but that, like I say, it's this idea of, okay, what's this organisation about? And we know that there was some people who didn't like statues being toppled, for example, because there's an argument there that history should be looked after, and it's history, you can't erase history. But then if you've got people who had slave owner kind of history and past, then is it right that a statue of them exists in a town, for example? And that's a wider debate to have, isn't it? But I think that's maybe where people are thinking, the Black Lives Matter movement isn't about racism, it's about dividing people and trying to create trouble. So I think, I don't know, it's a really difficult subject, but you're right. I think it is disappointing to see that people can't just get behind it and just say, you know what, actually, I mean, my view is this: if someone isn't hurting me, then I don't have a problem with them doing what they're doing. And that's always been my view. I think if you're not hurting me or someone else, then what's the issue? And that's how I've always tried to live my life anyway. But yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? It's not an easy subject. You could speak about this subject for
Hey, Richard, you thought politics were complicated. I mean, it's also because you mentioned at the Colston statue, because I actually wanted to talk about that as well. Because the Colston statue, it's like the year anniversary of it. People in Bristol taking action on that, and it's been put in a museum. I've got just give some connotations. It's been put in a museum, and it's still got all the graffiti on the statue, so people can see it. Now, a few of my friends who are from minorities, they love that. They kind of agreed and disagreed with the statue being pulled down, because they said it's still part of history and should still be taught. But when it was said it would be put in a museum, they're like, yeah, that's cool. But what's happened is an organisation called Save Our Statues have ended up doing a campaign to buy all the tickets from the museum so nobody can see it, because they're just block booking all the tickets. And I find it really cool and really funny that an organisation called Save Our Statues are stopping people seeing a statue.
It's so counterintuitive, that, doesn't it? It doesn't seem to.
All I'm gonna say is, if you're gonna buy every ticket for the museum so people can't see the museum, just buy the museum. Then you get to take it out.
Yeah, true. I mean, because the arguments for the Colston statue. I mean, I at the time, my housemate, he won't mind being talked about, but when I said I was actually kind of happy the statue got brought down, he immediately got very, very angry with me, and I'm like, no, well, you might. I actually think it's a good idea it's come down because it's promoted a conversation. That's the main reason. So I'm probably still on the fence whether it should have gone back on the plinth or not, to be honest.
Well, I think it's all about the mechanism you use to put it down, because ultimately, as I was explaining earlier, every place has elected politicians, so they could have. Obviously there is I think it's a Labour council, so I'm not sure why that wasn't enacted already. If there was such a big feeling around it, then like you say, put it in a museum. That's fine. But to the point where but the residents felt it had to be pulled down. This is obviously something that had been going on for some time. I don't think it was just a Black Lives Matter movement, but obviously that's what probably bubbled it over to the point where people felt they wanted to get rid of it. But I think at the same time, if you go down the route of basically saying, okay, criminal damage is okay, then you're opening a bit of a rabbit hole there in the Pandora's box potentially for other things to be targeted, which maybe other people don't like. So, for example, if you have someone who's maybe very anti-LGBTQT and there's a statue which they don't like, they might argue, well, okay, I can do the same as what happened in Bristol. So I think you've got to be very careful about condoning these actions and seeing what the wider implications might be, even if you might agree with it going down, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And going forward. So that's sort of what I sort of think.
Cool. But I just want to add on that the argument that a lot of these people have had that if you tear down the statues, people forget history. There's no statues of Stalin anymore, but I know he is.
And you know what I do love? I love the fact that they've kept the graffiti on there actually, because that is now part of history as well. So in sort of 100 years' time, when people are going to look at that statue, they'll be like, okay, well, this part of that statue's like history is now the Black Lives Matter movement. So it's sort of living history, isn't it? So I think that's really quite cool they've done that, and I hope that will be kept, indefinitely. Really. But
I think there's because there is I think everyone's got to be aware history is constantly being written, and you can end up being part of history. You young people, pay attention. You can end up being part of history. All right. Right. So we're coming towards the end. Has anyone else got any other questions or things they want to say quickly before we do our kind of fade out and talk about all the fun things we've had happen to us this week? Say, do you know what? This politics malarkey is easy. We just get a counsellor on to explain how it works, and then we're like, oh yeah, I understand it now.
Yeah.
It's great.
I generally agree with that. Actually, having someone to talk about it with actually does make a lot more sense.
Yeah,
it really has helped.
That's good to hear. I mean, I think it can be daunting, but I think I remember when I first got elected actually, and I just remember the amount of stuff that was bombarded at me, and I felt, gosh, as someone who's an elected member, if I feel bombarded by it, then the members of the public who aren't necessarily fully engaged must feel the same. I think it's important to be to remember that these things do have an effect on your day-to-day life. Actually, how many times your bin is collected may actually be more important than, say, a debate in Parliament, which is going on, which may have no effect on you. So, like I mentioned earlier, try and pay attention to it, because sometimes there might be something which is really important to yourself that you may want. Okay, I might want to contact my local councillor, and you will find that most councillors are very willing to talk to, and they like it when their residents get in contact with them, actually, because it's like, okay, well, that's what we're here for. That's why we're doing it. Yeah. So,
yeah, politics. Yeah. I always get excited about politics. I just, even despite the fact that I'm a raving loony lefty to a degree, it's fun, isn't it?
I mean, it's all about debate and ideas, isn't it? And I've always said to myself, if I have a view or an idea that cannot be challenged, it's not worth holding that view.
Yeah.
So I'm not someone and we spoke about the echo chamber earlier, didn't we, James? And I think that's for me. I'm very conscious that I try to not go down the echo chamber rabbit hole, because it's very easy to stay around people who just agree with everything you think, isn't it? Actually, the challenge comes from when you maybe speak to people who have different views to you, and you think, okay, well, I don't agree with you on everything, but I hadn't considered that point before, and actually, that's a valid argument. So, that's always how I try to come across an issue, and that's how I approach it, really. And I think that's that's worked quite well for me in the past until now.
But there's a little piece of advice for all you young people out there: don't do it on Facebook generally, because nobody wins on Facebook arguments. It's just like people going like that. Anyway, right?
People do it on Facebook. I think it's a bit more prominent on Twitter.
Well, someone had to mention
even
it.
worse for it. Yeah,
Twitter is worse.
No, but in general speaking, it is much more worse on Facebook than it is. No, it's worse on Twitter than it is on Facebook.
And that's why Richard isn't on Twitter.
Exactly.
He hates Twitter with a passion. Right. Anyway, so I'm just going to go round. Thank you, James, for coming on the show. It's been amazing to have you. So we're going to go round and just share something happy from this week that someone's had. We'll go around. We'll usually do me at the end, and then we'll say goodbye to everyone on the stream. So, Owen, what fun thing or cool thing do you want to share from this week?
Okay, so my fun thing and cool thing would be, well, these past 2 weeks. So last week was one of my show weeks, touching on the symbolic, actual imagery of how toxic internet and social media can be, of having one side being good and then suddenly changing to bad quite quickly. Great performance of Cacophony. If it actually does come back into theatres in London, I'd strongly recommend going to see it, because one person performed it, but now getting to see it by a professional company, you get that message quite clear. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And also with this week doing another show, bit crazy, but I'm enjoying it. I am so much enjoying it, but I'm more enjoying that I'm getting to be back here on Free to Talk stuff.
Excellent. So you lose that at the end. Rioni, how about you? How's your week been? What fun thing do you want to share? Oh, there's the baby.
Just chatting away. But yeah, my friends came to visit me like 2 days ago, and we just went to the pub and had some drinks and food and that.
Oh,
that was nice.
It's actually able to get out
finally.
in the late pandemic. I like it. Charlotte, what about you?
Yeah, I'm the same as you, only really. I've managed to see some friends that I haven't seen in ages, and we've just gone to the pub. It's just been nice to catch up, really. Yeah.
James, what about you?
Yeah, I've had a busy sort of past week. Actually did some work with AO in Rectory Farm, so we do a food bank every half-term school holidays for our families, local families in the area, which was really busy, wasn't it, AO? Actually,
yeah, it was.
So that was good. I also went out in Northampton town centre with Amarjit Singh, who's a local businessman, and I went out and did work. He gives out curry and hot and cold drinks to homeless people in the town. Which was interesting, because obviously kind of pre-COVID he was doing a lot more, so we've got a lot less homeless people in the streets now. You may remember that the council actually put all homeless people off the streets into hotels during lockdown, and what that allowed actually was for a lot of the people who'd never engaged with the council, refused to actually to engage and actually get themselves off the streets. And there are people who've been on the streets rough sleeping for nearly 20 years who are now actually living in their own homes. So that work is ongoing. I feel quite passionately about the homeless and getting, that's something which we really do need to try and get a grip on. But to see people like Amarjit who go out every week and do this, and there's some great organisations like Project 1619, Hope Centre, but to see people doing that, it kind of was a really great experience. So yeah. Good.
I highly recommend it. I used to work for the Hope Centre as well, doing the food club for them. So yeah, it's a great volunteering opportunity if you want to do something else. But you can message me and I can put you in contact with people. Richard, what's your fun thing from the past week?
Probably spending Sunday evening on a Discord call with my friends watching a wrestling pay-per-view, then Logan Paul versus Floyd Mayweather.
Right. So just in case anyone doesn't know, so Richard loves wrestling and darts. He's old before his time, but he loves the pay-per-views. I miss them sometimes, but yeah, that sounds great. Was it good, this one?
Which one?
The what you were watching on Sunday?
Logan.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were both all right. I was expecting Floyd Mayweather to knock out Logan Paul in the first round. They went the distance, so
I think we all wanted him to knock out knock him out in the first round, but because it's an exhibition fight, he was just dancing around.
I wanted it to go I wanted to go a couple of rounds. I just thought it's Floyd Mayweather. He's just gonna knock him out. Distance.
But instead, they both walked away with their bank accounts $1 million richer. Ayo, what fun or happy thing have you got to share before I do mine last?
I think following up on what James said, last Thursday we were in community center in Recreation Farm, giving out food parcels, which we do every half term, and it was so busy. But at the end of the day, when you realize the kind of joy you've created in the heart of the people who've come to take the food parcel, it makes the whole thing worth it. So it was a very good one for me. And then yesterday I reconnected with a friend who I've not seen in 17 years. Yeah.
You managed to keep in contact with someone who wasn't on Facebook.
How did you know it was on Facebook? How did you know? Yeah, she just messaged me on Facebook, and then we exchanged numbers. 17 years ago was the last time we saw. So we're catching up next week in Milton Keynes.
Oh, I love it. See, that's a nice feel-good story. That Ayo, thank you very much. Right, because I'm greedy yet again, people. I've kind of got two. So because I'm good like that. So the first one is a video I found because I'm good at finding these videos. It does involve an animal, but it's an animal playing snooker. Okay, so I'm just gonna. I know it sounds weird, doesn't it? So here we go. This made me very happy this week. And oh no, here we go. So yeah, that was
that's the clear definition of white ball corner pocket.
Yeah, I know, it's good, isn't it? It's just the things I find on the internet. It's an amazing place. Right, so the second one is actually. Let me just bring it up here. So I am organising a charity stream on Twitch. For those that know what Twitch is, so it's a place where we can play games that I play with Richard and Owen. They support our Twitch channel. But I'm doing a charity event on the 26th, which you can see on Facebook. I'll put the link on our post as well. So we're playing a game called Vermintide with a few friends of mine to raise some money for Free to Talk. And basically anybody can watch. You don't even have to donate. But the joy of the game is, whilst I play, the game will randomly ask you who are watching, do you want to give me like a power up, or do you want to send loads of monsters to eat my face? So I know exactly how it's going to work on the stream. Everyone's going to go, I want monsters to eat your face, like every single time. But it'll be fun, and people watching can have some control of the stream as well. So anyway, thank you to everybody that's watched and commented, and thank you to everybody that's come on. James, thank you so much for coming on and putting politics to right for us. What I will do is when we say goodbye, James, we can stay on, and I can just thank you again after the broadcast. But if everyone likes to say bye to the stream, now is the time.
Right.
Bye.